So I've been working on my authorization service, and it's totally sweet. It's only taken me 6 months to build it. Just 6 months. I started implementing some basic RBAC library, but that wasn't enough, obviously. So I designed relationship-based, fine-grained authorization for the highest security possible. And then, to make it super fast, I used a GPU tower, running in my mom's basement, of course, connected via optic cable to bare metal server at my local esports lounge, permissions, restrictions, and admin. Nailed it.
Wait. Whatever you did sounds cool, but there's also another option.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with Permit.io. Permit is the full-stack authorization platform created so you never have to build permissions again. Build and manage permissions for any application with policy as code, APIs, developer-friendly SDKs, and user-facing UIs. Permit is an end-to-end authorization platform built on top of open-source policy engines. It's high-performing, gets decisions in less than 10 milliseconds, and uses a hybrid approach where config is in the cloud, but data and decisions are made locally. Not only is it intuitive, it lets you implement fully functional authorization in 5 minutes, not 6 months, and in the code base you prefer. Check out the link in the show notes or go to permit.io to learn more. That's permit.io. Sign up for Permit and stop rebuilding auth.
I've always been obsessed with making things fast. This is just the DNA of the company. And so I started just wanting to understand, hey, if you remove the things that as software engineers we've made up, basically all of the abstractions are just made up. They exist in your brain and they're there to help you be more productive or understand the hardware. But if you get as close as you can to the hardware, if you design it for what the real platform is, which is this multi-core CPUs with this high bandwidth memory and gigabit per second NVMe devices, what would you do differently? So sometimes I like to say you get to reinvent the wheel when the road changes. My name is Alex Gallego. I am the founder and CEO of Red Panda.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
Spent 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do
took
next.
many goes to get right.
Who built the teams that have their back.
The company is its people.
The teams help each other achieve. I was proud of our team.
Keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was
Yes, we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time. The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want it. It's not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story. I'm your host, Noah Lampart, and today how Alex Gallego has built the next generation of data streaming that's simple, powerful, and cost-efficient. This episode is sponsored by Kiteworks. Legacy-managed file transfer tools lack proper security, putting sensitive data at risk. With Kiteworks MFT, companies can send automated or ad hoc files in a fully integrated, highly secure manner. The solution is FedRAMP Moderate authorized by the Department of Defense and has been so since 2017. Step into the future of secure managed file transfer with Kiteworks. Visit kiteworks.com to get started. This episode is sponsored by ClearQuery. ClearQuery is the analytics for humans platform. With their full suite of features, you can go from data ingestion to automated insights seamlessly. With Ask ClearQuery, you can find valuable insights into your data using plain English. Don't miss the opportunity to simplify your data analytics with ClearQuery. Get started today at clearquery.io/codestory. Alex Gallego was born and raised in Colombia. He is always identified as a builder, and as a kid, he would help his uncle rebuild dirt bike engines and was the kid that would take apart his friend's computer when they weren't looking. Once he arrived in the US, his dad got a computer which started his love for tech and cryptography. But outside of tech, he's married with 3 boys, so his time is consumed with being present with his boys, to which he stated he loves being a dad. Beyond that, he enjoys mentally resetting by doing mountain biking and road cycling. Alex was working with a large dataset and ad tech with a startup, and after this startup did well, he was hooked, and he went on to build a computing framework, which eventually sold to Alkamai. During his time at that company, he started playing with squeezing every bit of compute out of hardware, and decided to combine this
in order to optimize storage. This is the creation story of Red Panda.
The story of Red Panda is one in my mind with my personal story. There isn't like the story of the company and Alex's story. When you're the founder and you're the person that writes the code, it's just my life story is one thing and the company is just part of it. I had started working with this large real-time, air quotes, data in ad tech in New York in 2011 or so. Small startup back then, also backed by Google Ventures, called Yieldwell. And so the idea there was that we wanted to work on ads for mobile phones and wanted to compete with Google. And that company did well. It had 100% of some of the largest publishers' traffic at some point with this New York Times, Forbes, Reuters, MSNBC, and so on. And frankly, I got hooked. It was like, wow, this is super fun to be able to make money in these interactions. But I also didn't want to work in ad tech. I left there, went on to build a computing framework company. Streaming in general, it's really two concepts. It's a little bit of compute with a little bit of a storage. That's kind of it. And so you chain these things together. And at the end of the day, you get something useful like fraud detection, like anomaly detection, or whatever. It's interactivity or a Twitter timeline and so on. But by and large, it's this idea of a little bit of compute with a little bit of a storage. And so Concord was on the compute side, and I sold that in 2016 to Alkamai, who is one of our customers now. And then I became one of the youngest principal engineers in the history of that company, and I had a lot of freedom. And so I've always been obsessed with like performance and making things fast. And when I was there, I started playing with this idea of squeezing every ounce of performance of hardware. And so Red Panda really started from a deeply technical roots. I was a principal engineer there, and I just wanted to write something for me. So I left Alkamai in 2019. I was living in Miami back then, and I just opened up a Lenovo P50 laptop and Emacs and GCC. I just started writing the code for what eventually became Red Panda. So Red Panda is this native C++ single binary. For some of the listeners that are in the big data space, it's 100% with the Kafka API protocol, and you have customers like whatever, largest electric car company, largest CDN, largest ISP, largest bank in the US, largest company by market cap, and so on.
Tell me about the MVP for Red Panda. So that first version of the product you built, those early days where you started building what became Red Panda. How long did it take you to build, and what sort of tools were you using to bring it to life? I heard you mention C++, but give me the overview there.
I bought these two computers off of Craigslist from a data center. So this was 5 years ago now or so. They had like pretty fast enterprise level NVMe devices and had 25 gigabit networking cards. And the reason I wanted to get access to physical machines as opposed to renting it on Amazon or whatever was because I wanted to see how far I can push down, how close to the metal I could push down. I started playing with this idea of a thread per core architecture. And so like when you start application in sort of a database style project, you have to really make a couple of fundamental decisions. One is the threading model, the second one is the memory model, and they often go hand in hand. I've always been obsessed with making things fast. This is just the DNA of the company. We're about actually to release microsecond. Yesterday, in fact, we released microsecond level latencies for the Kafka API, which is pretty cool. And so for context, the blink of your eye is roughly around 130 milliseconds. When you're in the microsecond space, you're at least 100x faster. And so I started just wanting to understand, hey, if you remove the things that as software engineers we've made up, basically all of the abstractions are just made up. They exist in your brain and they're there to help you be more productive or understand the hardware. But if you get as close as you can to the hardware, if you design it for what the real platform is, which is this multi-core CPUs with this high bandwidth memory and gigabit per second NVMe devices, what would you do differently? So sometimes I like to say you get to reinvent the wheel when the road changes. And if you were to start from scratch, what would be possible? And so that was the true genesis of the idea is if you had no restriction, and obviously I was lucky because I had a little bit of funds from the Concord acquisition to just have fun and play around with it. I started the company via a couple of Twitter rants on just how large the gap was between the state of the art at the time, which was Apache Kafka, and what hardware was capable of doing. No surprises, by the way, to people that were working in HFT or any form of low latency software. That was the genesis, and we made a couple of pretty, at the time, controversial choices. No startup was building software in C++. Now with LLMs, of course there's a bunch of startups building things in C++, but 5 years ago, it was extremely unpopular. We started at Threadripper Core, we wrote our own drivers and so on. And so that was that's how the idea got started.
This episode is sponsored by Kiteworks. Legacy managed file transfer tools are dated and lack the security that today's remote workforce demands. Companies that continue relying on outdated technology put their sensitive data at risk. And that's where Kiteworks comes in. Kiteworks MFT is absolutely the most secure MFT on the market today. It has been FedRAMP moderate authorized by the Department of Defense since 2017. Through FedRAMP, Kiteworks' level of security compliance provides a fast route to CMMC compliance, saving customers time, effort, and money. Kiteworks MFT makes it easy for users to send automated or ad hoc files via fully integrated shared folders and email. Administrators can manage policies in a unified console and create custom integrations using their API. Did we mention it's secure? The level of security with Kiteworks solution is rare to find. Step into the future of secure managed file transfer with Kiteworks. Visit kiteworks.com to get started. That's KITEWORKS.com. This episode is sponsored by Cashfly. The web is a competitive place, and if your site delivers its content pixelated, slow, or not at all, well, then you lose. But that's where Cashfly comes in. Cashfly delivers rich media content up to 159% faster than other major CDNs. Through ultra-low latency streaming, lightning-fast gaming, and optimized mobile content, the company offers a variety of benefits. For over 20 years, Cashfly has held a track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery. While competitors call themselves fast or use cute animal names, only Cashfly holds the record of being the fastest and serves customers like Adobe, the NFL, or Roblox, where content is created by users and must be delivered in real time. For the first time ever, Code Story listeners can get a 5 terabyte CDN for free. Yep, you heard that right, free. Learn more at cashfly.com/codestory. That's CACHEFLY.com/codestory. So then you got it started, it's working, you're building something, you're making some controversial decisions, but you move forward. How did you progress the product from there and mature it? And I think to wrap that in a box a little bit, what I'm looking for is, how do you build your roadmap? And how do you go about deciding, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address with Red Panda?
When I wrote Red Panda and I started tweeting and talking about it, really on Twitter, companies, some of the world's largest companies, DM me on Twitter. Some of the engineers are like, hey, these ideas resonate with me, would love to try it. I was like, okay, I have this Docker image, download it and try it. There's no license, there's no restriction. We went from 0 to some of the largest workloads in the world that used to run the Kafka API. So in bytes per second, that is like going from 0 to multiple gigabytes per second sustained traffic, right? So this is like always on, fire hose, business critical. And people went to production with it. Frankly, I was very lucky. Like, I wouldn't have gone to production with the software I wrote in a year. But what it did tell me is, it was a very clear, by the way, I wasn't charging these people. They just had it on, I put this up on GitHub, and some of these companies started using it and started pushing it. And my obsession early on was not with monetization. I wanted to charge people for a different reason than making money. I wanted to charge people because I wanted to prove to myself that there was real commercial value in the things that I was creating, not because I was interested in making money. And so there was like basically a threshold. I said, can someone pay a few $100,000 a year for this software? And can they run mission critical soft workloads on it? And so the way we designed the roadmap was, some of these companies early on took a huge bet on us. They were either friends that I had worked with that went to work with other companies in position of leadership, and they knew that they liked the software that I had built, or there were people that follow me on Twitter, or I saw it, I did a talk track or whatever it was. We were just friendly in like the nerd sphere. And so they just went to production with it, and it was very clear. They're like, hey, these are the things that we need. Okay, the base Kafka API protocol works, but you don't have transactions, you don't have AUI, you don't have connectors, you don't have tiered storage, you don't have whatever, you don't have multi-AZ, like you don't have all of this, you don't have audit login and Kerberos and blah, 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 blah. And so they're like, we need this to add more use cases. By and large, except with the development of one or two features in which we push the market forward, it has been all customer demand. I didn't know that starting the company as an engineer. Like I was very proficient at writing code and getting things to production, but I had no idea truly what it was, the whole product development process, finding product market fit, etc. As an engineer, you think of maybe you'll build software one day and that'll change how the world is built. And then sometimes that happens, and really customer pulled us in the directions of which we are. And we decided to build a company. We're like, okay, we probably need to make a few customers super happy in production. And more importantly to me, the thing that drove all of this was a single thread, which was, if Red Panda crashes, will their business suffer? Is this a true tier 0 mission critical software? This must be up for them to make money. Their business must rely on it. That was the drive. That still continues to be the driving thread for me at this company. It's like, that is the type of software that I want to build. I don't want to build this like nice to have. I don't want to build applications. I don't want to build widgets. And there's nothing wrong with it. But for my personality, for the software that I want to focus on in my lifetime, I only want to build software that is mission critical to a business.
So then I hear you saying we. Tell me about how you built your team, and what did you look for in those people to indicate that they were the winning horses to join you?
I would be remiss if I don't mention that I don't think that there is a recipe here. Largely in part, those were the people that were directly connected to me and available. But looking back, I would say high-level quality is intensity. It's something that I really value in people. There's many ways of thinking about this, but it's like when somebody like latches on that idea, that person does not let go. Whatever it is, that they're going to take it through the finish line, super, super focused. It could be grit, it could be another word to be used. I think grit gets misused by the, productivity obsessive people of the industry. But I like the word intensity more. I generally like to work with people that are super focused on the right things, on the end goal. Because at the end of the day, it doesn't matter who does the work. It doesn't matter who merged the code, who reviewed the code. What matters is our customers happy in production. It is the only thing that matters when building a company. I recruited people accidentally that had that. I wish I had that framework of mine and perhaps clarity 5 years later with thousands and thousands of interviews. Like those people, if you talk to Miha and Noah and some of the early folks that joined the company, and Juan from Colombia, they were all friends of friends or direct connections. And I would ask people, I was like, would you enthusiastically hire this person? And the answer has to be absolutely yes. I don't have a leadership position for this person, or hey, this person is someone I would take a bet on. And I would just go and recruit them. I was like, hey, I'm working on this idea. I think it has I don't know if it's going to work out. I've always been super honest about that kind of thinking. But we have a chance at changing how these data-intensive applications are built for the world. At worst, we built a state-of-the-art system in replication and latency and performance. And so I would guarantee their salary for the first year, and they decided to join, and those people had a phenomenal network. Then their friends joined, and just the idea of smart people know smart people, or good people know good people, same concept. The company today is roughly around 200 people. We got to the first 100 people strictly through friends of friends and friends of friends.
This episode is sponsored by CashFly. The web is a competitive place, and if your site delivers its content pixelated, slow, or not at all, well, then you lose. But that's where CashFly comes in. CashFly delivers rich media content up to 159% faster than other major CDNs. Through ultra-low latency streaming, lightning-fast gaming, and optimized mobile content, the company offers a variety of benefits. For over 20 years, CashFly has held a track record for high-performing, ultra-reliable content delivery. While competitors call themselves fast or use cute animal names, only CashFly holds the record of being the fastest and serves customers like Adobe, the NFL, or Roblox, where content is created by users and must be delivered in real time. For the first time ever, Code Story listeners can get a 5 terabyte CDN for free. Yep, you heard that right, free. Learn more at cashfly.com/codestory. That's CACHEFLY.com/code story. Hello, welcome to the Data Analytics Club. Do you know the password? No, didn't know there was one. Do you know how to code? No. Do you know how to query data? Like, ask a question? I guess not. I see. Then you can't be in this club. Sorry. Goodbye. Don't be left out of the Analytics Club. ClearQuery is the Analytics for Humans platform. With their full suite of features, you can go from data ingestion to automated insights seamlessly. ClearQuery provides you with the information you need without requiring you to do the heavy lifting. Their Ask ClearQuery feature allows you to ask questions in plain English, helping you find relationships and connections in your data that may have previously gone unnoticed. You can even visualize your data with presentation mode, taking your data storytelling to the next level. Pricing is based on storage, not licenses, and that ensures that you get the most bang for your buck. Don't miss the opportunity to simplify data analytics, your data analytics, with ClearQuery. Get started today at clearquery.io/codestory. Okay, Alex, as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built, what are you most proud of?
100% the team. No question. I feel true to myself saying this in anywhere to anyone, is the team that we've been able to put together is the thing I'm most proud of. I think the same group of people could build so many things. We could ship in software is just a byproduct of the organization. We've managed to change companies entirely. We've managed to onboard some of the world's market makers. There are 7 of them. Basically, people that provide total liquidity to the world of illiquid assets. Like, we power many of the 7 top market makers for the world. We power space exploration. We power oil and gas. We power retail. We power the largest, excuse my language, badass workloads in the world in throughput or in latency or whatever it is. And that's really just a byproduct of the people that we've hired. And I feel so proud just being able to be their peer and being able to work alongside them. They're just so talented and smart in detail and specific ways, whether it's like my performance team being able to like debug all the way down to assembly line and unroll loops so that we get latency, we get like a 25% latency improvements, or whatever, is the application team or my product team or my head of people or my head of sales, etc. Over time, the thing I feel the most proud of is being able to work alongside with the people that are my peers and obviously everyone in the company.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
I would say probably the top mistake that we corrected pretty early on was to not have clarity of the company's core values, which is 3 today: being a good human, customer obsession, and winning as a team. Those are just basically nothing. They're just words on a paper. But internally for the culture, they serve as a framework so that 1, we would hold ourselves accountable, and 2, we would express to the world, like, this is the kind of people that we want in the company. And so to give you an example, I am a Latino CEO, born and raised in Colombia. English is my second language and so on. And early on, we hired someone famous in the computing world that was racist, and that was terrible, right? So I think he lasted a week, and obviously we did back channels, and this person is super famous, and if you touch a computer, you probably work with the output of this computer scientist that, you know, with systems that he touched, very meaningful way, like he's a famous person. And I was just like, how is it possible for a person who is racist to work for a Latino CEO? I think this was super early on. 6 months into the company, I was like, okay, we have to define what the culture is explicitly, and we have to go and filter for those things. That was probably one of the best lessons learned for me. And you don't know, like you're an engineer, you're like talented perhaps at building some systems that the world powers, but building a company is a fundamentally different skill. And so it's trial by fire in many ways. Especially the job of the CEO it's a goalpost that keeps moving. Every quarter you have to do something new that the company's not ready for by definition of the job. You're the person that has the most context and least skilled and competent in some particular things. What are the process? Who are the personas? How does this get done? And then over time, you learn those things, and then you get someone who's world-class at it, like Clint is my head of revenue. Or you deal with people things, and then you get Jen, or you get marketing, and you get Mike, and so on. And thankfully, that happened early on when we were like 6 people. And I think we had an incident with this person, and I think by Saturday, this happened like Friday night, the person got drunk. And then Saturday morning, he was fired, and we took action because that wasn't the company that we wanted to build. And what that did is it sent a huge signal to the rest of us, and we were able to build on those cultural pillars on the kind of people that we wanted to be.
This will be fun to hear what you have to say. So tell me what the future looks like for Red Panda, the product, and for your team.
The future for me as an individual, it's very directly attached to how the company thinks about it today. I think a different CEO would have a different view. And for me, I want to change fundamentally how the future of data-intensive applications are built. Let me use different words here. The classical analytics space has always been done using this idea of batch, which is just a group of events. And so for those of us that have played around with Unix systems, it's like you put everything on a file and then you pipe it to the next command. And so you cat the file, then you sort it, then you get the uniques, and then you do the count, right? And so this idea of a staged, basically discretization of points via stages. When big data came into play, those same concepts, like the Unix philosophy of this like composable stages or pipes effectively, became true at larger scale. And Snowflake is probably the best version of this, where it is the best. They call it data warehouse, lake houses, it doesn't really matter, but the ideas are the same. The idea is that you process some events, then you stage them and put them on your data warehouse, which is just an S3 bucket often. And then you do the next stage and you put them on S3 bucket. And the reason for that, it was both mentally simple and really cost effective. There wasn't the rise for all of these data warehousing needs is that relative to the cost of everything else, it is the most cost effective way to get started, or was. And so when I build a company, and I have to give context so I can tell you where we're heading with the future, we're going to tackle those two things directly, both cost and complexity. And so if I give you a tool that is a superset of both bounded and unbounded data, and it's just as cost effective and easy to use, like why wouldn't you use this tool to build a future? For me, the future is about continuing to lower the bar for people, both in cost and complexity, to be able to onboard streaming technologies. And that's like a very specific thing, but it's to change how the future is built for anyone that has any form of data-intensive applications. And it's pretty exciting for me. That means this is a long-term roadmap. I don't think that'll stop, like I think forever. And the way we get there is first we build a relationship with people like we talked about. We run their mission critical, like ring zero applications with Red Panda. And what it does is that it changes the relationship of the customers and Red Panda to that of an advisory role. Because we make them successful, all future products that we build have a phenomenal penetration rate on our customers, not from just like a commercial perspective, because that's a byproduct, but because they trust us. They see Red Panda and they see us as the company building the future of how they want to continue building. And so that advisor relationship allows us to, I think in my opinion, change how the future is going to be built.
Let's switch to you, Alex. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to and why.
I have an aversion to the ideas of heroes from a storyline perspective, and I like the idea of the heroine journey. And like strictly speaking about literature, my wife is a writer, and so she's taught me ways to articulate the way I think about this. But the hero story is this idea that often a guy in books or literature, it's like born and there's like a destiny and then he dies alone. It's like the story of Superman or Lord of the Rings and so on. It's like this personal sacrifice to the nth degree. Whereas the heroine story is this idea of community building. It's this idea that, hey, often female characters are helped along by the community. And so with that, to answer the question directly, is I like characteristics about particular individuals that have in a real, tangible way changed the world. I think the iPhone is a great example, or electric cars is a great example. But I also find it extremely easy and disagree fundamentally with the wholeness of people's characters. And to say that, obviously, I find the ability for Steve Jobs to have seen the future in the way that he did and be able to put products together an inspiring thing. And I really appreciate the way Amazon went about building their business and the idea of setting expectations that we're always building the future. And so it's like, it's always 7 years for them, right? It's always 7 years. in the future. It's always day two for them. And so like that type of mentality, I really appreciate. I was like, I love the idea of always building for the future. It's like, as long as I'm alive, it's not like I'm going to run out of ideas. And the more things you learn and the more things that come out, you're always going to be there fine tweaking the ideas. It's like impossible for me to go back and look at any essay I've written and say, I would write it the same. I would always re-edit this podcast for like ad infinitum if I ever had the chance to go back and re-edit these things. It's just my personality type. And so that idea of continuous improvement is something I deeply value. And from mentorship perspective too, I think it's useful as a CEO in specific, to have people that have done this, not for the superficial reason that it's like, oh, I need tactical advice to know how to sell into a Fortune 10 company, or hey, you sold to this CEO and this finance department and this procurement department. And it's for perspective. And the way I think about this is that my 2-year-old, the first time that he fell backwards on top of the coffee table downstairs, he panicked. It was the worst thing that had ever happened to him. And so you comfort him. It's going to be okay. This too shall pass. You're going to be fine. You're not hurt, whatever. And as a startup journey, so many things are new because of the hyper-specific context and the industry and the people and the talent and the money and like macro resources and so on, that sometimes you just need someone to say, clearly, I haven't fallen from that specific coffee table, but I can tell myself, it's going to be okay. In a similar way, I appreciate advisors and people that have done this before to say, hey, this thing that you think is very difficult, that's normal. It's going to be okay. This too shall pass. As I look at my journey and the company's journey, I feel that I've evolved the characters and the things that I look for in people. One, because I've incorporated some of those things early on that I thought were valuable. But two, because like my personal journey is so different every year. That was a long-winded way of saying that I really enjoy specific traits of people that would be considered world figures. But for most of them, I also don't think that they would be holistic people that I look up to.
Alex, last question. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world. They can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
As an immigrant, I would offer advice that may be different from others. If the person is in the US and the context is something that I could share, I think I would have a lot more to advise than if someone were in Europe or in Colombia or in Mexico or whatever it is. Just because the macroeconomics, the people, the funding, the ability to believe in yourself, it's so deeply ingrained in cultures that I do not think I would have access to the opportunities that I've had in any other place in the world. It has to be software, and it had to be in specific. I had to kick this off in San Francisco. I don't think I could have built what I've built in any other place in the world. So with that context, if the person has the ability to take a bet on themselves, I would always say, take it. I think I've regretted the things that I haven't done more than the things that I've done. And obviously the caveat there is that for a lot of immigrants, the people back home depend on your earnings. If you are a salaryman in some large company, I guarantee, or at least I know firsthand from some of my friends, that they send money home to a bunch of people, right? You are the person to go to if your third cousin has a kid and doesn't have diapers. It is immaterial to your finances, but you are a pillar to a family. Now, if a person is from the US, the family's here, they have a financial background, they probably went to a good school, or I just think it would have to be super specific. But in general, the guidance that I would give people, try it. Time box it. Try it for 2 weeks, try it for 4 weeks. Save money. I think most people that have the skills to build a company are probably well paid in tech. Usually they come from product managers or engineering backgrounds or some sales background, and they're often like smart and sophisticated and have the ability to save. By and large, these people have the ability to just go and chase their dreams. And I would have regretted every day if I hadn't done this. In fact, when I chose to build Red Panda, I asked my wife, Sarah, who's a saint, I said, I'm either going to build this now or when the kids are 5 years old. And she was super supportive. And like her one advice was at the time was like she's like, you will not be a happy person if you don't try this. And so super biased, because I've seen success and I've had a little bit of success in powering some of the world's largest companies. But also I am in the US and I went to school and I was able to save money, and I have the context that some people don't have. And in the US it's incredibly favorable to start a company. People will take bets. They will leave their jobs at some of the world's paying companies, whether it's like Google or Snowflake or Facebook, to take a chance at a startup. And that culture, I think, is really hard to replicate any other places. Contextually, I say people, try it. It's fun. I think you'll regret not trying.
I couldn't agree more. That's fantastic advice. Well, Alex, thank you for being on the show today, and thank you for telling the creation story of Red Panda.
Thanks for having me.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.